You know it's a rough day when negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit counts as not too bad. But it gets worse. In winter, when the coldest night of the year arrives, temperatures in the Arctic drop to minus 70 degrees Fahrenheit. However, the Inuit still manage to stay warm and cozy. Their secret? It starts with building a cozy home out of frozen water. You might think building an igloo is just about stacking snow blocks like oversized Lego pieces, but there's actually some serious science behind these cozy ice domes. And trust me, when it's cold enough to freeze your words mid-sentence, you'll want to know how to build one properly. I once tried making a snow fort as a kid in Minnesota. Let's just say that sad pile of snow wouldn't have kept a penguin warm, let alone a human being. First things first, forget everything you learned from cartoons. You can't just roll up a giant snowball and hollow it out like some sort of snow cave hermit crab. The Inuit have perfected this art over thousands of years, and their method is pure genius. They start by finding the right snow. It needs to be hard and compact enough to cut into blocks. If you've ever tried building with powder snow, you know it's about as useful as trying to build a sandcastle with sugar. The perfect snow should be firm enough that when you step on it, your foot doesn't sink in more than an inch or two. It's like nature's version of construction-grade materials, except this stuff melts if you look at it wrong. And it all begins with the spiral. Each snow block is cut at a slight angle and placed in a gradually rising spiral pattern. It's like building the world's coldest game of Jenga, except if you mess up, you're not just losing a game, you're losing your warm shelter for the night. The blocks typically weigh around 50 to 60 pounds each, which means building an igloo is also a pretty decent workout. Who needs a gym membership when you can build houses out of ice? Each block needs to be carefully shaped with a snow knife, traditionally made from caribou antler or whalebone, though modern Inuit often use metal saws. The blocks are usually about 2 feet long, 1 foot high, and 8 inches thick, but as with any construction project, size can vary based on available materials and local conditions. A properly built igloo can be 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit warmer inside than the outside temperature. When it's minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit outside, which is so cold that Fahrenheit and Celsius actually agree on how miserable it is, your igloo can maintain a relatively cozy minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit to 20 degrees Fahrenheit inside. Not exactly beach weather, but definitely an upgrade from freezing your eyelashes off. This temperature difference isn't just impressive, it's literally life-saving in the harsh Arctic environment. The secret to this remarkable temperature difference lies in the entrance design. Remember how your science teacher droned on about hot air rising and cold air sinking? Well, the Inuit put this principle to work by making the entrance tunnel lower than the living area. Cold air gets trapped in this cold sink like nature's version of a spam folder. It's there, but it's not getting in your way. The entrance tunnel, or tornak, is typically about 3 feet high and can be up to 10 feet long depending on how much protection you need from the wind. It's basically like having an Arctic version of a front porch, except instead of keeping salespeople out, it's keeping your precious warm air in. The sleeping platform is another clever feature. It's raised about 2 feet above the entrance level, putting you right in the warm air zone. It's like having a penthouse suite in an ice hotel, minus the overpriced minibar and fancy robes. This platform is usually covered with caribou hides, which provide crucial insulation from the cold snow beneath. Without this raised platform, you might as well be trying to nap in your freezer. Not exactly a recipe for a good night's sleep. But the real engineering masterpiece is in the details of how the blocks fit together. Each block is carefully shaped to lean slightly inward, creating that distinctive dome shape. The gaps between blocks are packed with loose snow, making the whole structure airtight. I once tried to build an igloo without properly sealing the gaps. Let's just say it felt like sleeping in a snow globe during a blizzard. The angle of the blocks is crucial. Too steep and they'll fall in, too shallow and they won't form a proper dome. It's like doing geometry homework, except your grade is measured in frostbite. The final touch is letting the interior heat up slightly so the inner surface glazes over. Your body heat and any cooking or oil lamp heat causes a thin layer of snow to melt and refreeze, creating a solid ice shell. This shell actually makes the igloo stronger and more insulated. It's like the igloo is wearing its own winter coat. The process is called sintering, and it transforms your snow block structure into a solid ice dome that's surprisingly strong. An experienced builder can actually climb on top of a finished igloo without damaging it, though I wouldn't recommend trying this at home or on your first igloo. One common rookie mistake is making the igloo too big. While it might seem nice to have room for a dance floor, bigger isn't better when it comes to igloos. The smaller the space, the easier it is to heat with just body warmth. The traditional size is just big enough for a family to sleep in, typically about 10 to 12 feet in diameter. Any larger, and you might as well be sleeping in an ice arena. A well-built igloo this size can comfortably shelter 4 to 6 people, though comfortable is relative when you're camping on ice. The whole process takes about 2 hours for experienced builders, though your first attempt might take significantly longer. My first igloo looked more like a frozen version of abstract art than a shelter. But hey, practice makes perfect, and in the Arctic, practice is pretty much mandatory. Now that we've got our igloo sorted out, let's talk about what to wear in weather that makes polar bears think twice about going outside. The Inuit's clothing system is so effective that modern Arctic explorers still copy it, though I doubt any of them look quite as stylish in their sealskin boots. And unlike modern gear that comes with a manual longer than a college textbook, traditional Inuit clothing works on simple principles that have kept people alive for thousands of years. The secret weapon in the Inuit winter wardrobe is caribou fur. And it's not just because it looks fancy. Each caribou hair is actually hollow, like tiny drinking straws filled with air. This creates an insulation system that puts your expensive synthetic jacket to shame. In fact, caribou fur is so effective that it provides about 5 times more warmth per inch than wool. That's right. While we're layering up with 3 sweaters and still shivering, caribou are out there living their best life in temperatures that would freeze your smartphone solid. A single square inch of caribou fur contains about 19,000 individual hairs, each one of them working as a tiny insulation tube. The traditional Inuit parka, or amauti, is a masterpiece of engineering that makes modern winter coats look like they were designed by someone who's never seen snow. It's made with 2 layers of caribou fur. The inner layer with the fur facing in, and the outer layer with the fur facing out. This might sound like overkill, but there's a method to this furry madness. The inner layer traps a pocket of warm air next to your skin, while the outer layer creates a windproof barrier that tells Arctic blasts to take a hike. The design is so effective that it can maintain a cozy microclimate around your body even when the outside temperature drops to minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Here's a fact that might surprise you. This 2-layer system is so effective that Inuit hunters sometimes had to be careful not to overheat while active. Yes, you read that right. Overheating in the Arctic. It's like having a portable sauna, except instead of relaxing with a face towel, you're tracking seals across the ice. The solution? Built-in ventilation flaps that can be opened to let out excess heat, making it the world's first climate-controlled clothing system. The hood of the parka is another feat of cold weather genius. It's designed to create a tunnel of warm air around your face, like a personal force field against the cold. Modern Arctic gear companies have tried to replicate this design, but they're basically selling knockoffs of a style that's been perfected over thousands of years. The hood actually creates a microclimate around your face where your breath warms the incoming air before you inhale it, preventing that painful feeling of breathing in Arctic air that feels like swallowing ice cubes. The hood also has a special feature for mothers. It can expand to carry a baby, keeping the little one toasty warm against mom's back. Talk about a baby carrier upgrade. This carrying pouch, called an amount, keeps the baby at the perfect temperature while leaving mom's hands free for work. The Inuit qulliqs, the boots, make your winter boots look like bedroom slippers. They're made from sealskin, which is naturally waterproof and flexible even in a ridiculous cold. The soles are made from bearded sealskin, the toughest, most durable leather nature provides. These boots are so well designed that even at minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit, your feet stay warm and dry. Modern boots with their fancy temperature ratings and battery-powered heaters? That's cute. The qulliqs have been keeping feet warm since before electricity was even a thing. The qulliqs have another clever feature. They're made slightly big to accommodate multiple layers of insulating socks. This creates air pockets that add extra warmth, unlike those tight-fitting fashion boots that squeeze your toes until they feel like frozen cocktail wieners. The traditional design includes a liner made from dried grass or fur, which wicks away moisture better than any high-tech synthetic material. When your feet sweat in minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit weather, you really don't want that moisture hanging around. It's like having tiny ice packs strapped to your feet. Mittens are another area where the Inuit showed they weren't messing around. While modern outdoor companies debate the merits of different finger configurations, the Inuit went straight for the nuclear option. Seal skin mittens with fur linings. Your fingers stay together like a bunch of penguins huddling for warmth, which is way more effective than separating them in gloves. A pair of traditional Inuit mittens can keep your hands warm in temperatures that would make a thermometer curl up and cry. All these clothing items work together as a system. The parka's hem overlaps the pants, the mittens have extra long cuffs that extend up your forearms, and the boots rise high enough to prevent any gaps. It's like wearing a suit of armor against the cold, except instead of protecting you from swords, it's protecting you from turning into a human popsicle. Every piece is designed to overlap and create a complete seal against the weather. Modern Arctic gear might come with fancy tags showing temperature ratings and high-tech material names, but most of it is just trying to copy what the Inuit figured out generations ago. The main difference? Traditional Inuit clothing actually gets warmer the colder it gets, as the fur becomes more efficient at trapping air. Your expensive synthetic jacket can't make that claim. Of course, staying warm in all this gear requires serious energy. You can burn up to 6,000 calories a day just trying to stay warm. And when you're burning that many calories, you need some serious fuel to keep going. The average person living in a temperate climate needs about 2,000 calories a day. But try that diet in the Arctic, and you'll be running on empty faster than a smartphone in cold weather. Inuit traditionally consume between 6,000 and 10,000 calories daily during the coldest months. That's like eating 5 large pepperoni pizzas every day, except their menu looks quite different. What's even more remarkable is that they maintain excellent health on this diet, despite it breaking pretty much every rule in modern nutrition books. Let's talk about fat. Not the kind you're trying to lose at the gym, but the kind that keeps you alive when it's cold enough to freeze spit before it hits the ground. Seal blubber, whale fat, and fish oils aren't just food for Inuit people. They're premium Arctic survival fuel. A pound of seal blubber packs about 4,500 calories. That's more than 2 days' worth of energy for someone living in Miami, but barely enough for a day when you're battling Arctic temperatures. The fat from marine mammals is also rich in omega-3 fatty acids, which help prevent blood vessels from constricting in cold weather. It's like natural antifreeze for your circulatory system. Modern nutritionists would probably have a heart attack looking at the traditional Inuit diet. It's basically the exact opposite of every food pyramid you've ever seen. But here's the kicker. Studies of traditional Inuit communities show remarkably low rates of heart disease. Scientists were so baffled by this that they coined a term for it, the Inuit paradox. Turns out Mother Nature knows more about nutrition than your average Instagram health guru. Research has shown that their genetic makeup has actually adapted over thousands of years to efficiently process these high amounts of animal fats. Raw meat plays a starring role in this Arctic menu, and not just because building a cooking fire inside an igloo is trickier than teaching a polar bear to juggle. Raw meat, especially when frozen, retains nutrients that cooking destroys. Vitamin C, for instance, typically associated with fruits and vegetables, is present in raw meat, especially in the liver and skin of marine mammals. 1 piece of raw seal liver contains more vitamin C than 6 oranges. Try explaining that to your local smoothie shop. The practice of eating raw meat also saves precious energy, both the fuel needed for cooking and the body heat you'd lose while gathering and burning it. The Inuit practice of eating raw meat has earned them some strange looks from outsiders over the years. European explorers were particularly squeamish about it, right up until they found themselves struggling to survive in the Arctic with their civilized eating habits. Nothing changes your mind about raw seal quite like watching your canned beans freeze solid. Many early Arctic explorers actually died from malnutrition because they refused to adopt local eating practices. Talk about fatal stubbornness. Even the way food is stored and prepared is a lesson in Arctic ingenuity. Fish and meat are often aged in specific ways, not because they forgot about it in the back of the icebox, but because controlled aging makes certain nutrients more accessible. Take qulliq, for example. Small birds fermented in seal skin. It sounds like something you dare your friend to eat, but it's actually a crucial source of nutrients during the dark winter months. The fermentation process breaks down proteins and fats into more easily digestible forms, while also creating a food source that can last for months without additional preservation. Speaking of winter, timing your meals becomes crucial when you're living in temperatures that make penguins look tough. Eating a big meal before bed isn't just allowed, it's essential. Your body burns through huge amounts of energy trying to stay warm while you sleep. Without enough calories in your system, you might wake up to find yourself with an energy level hovering somewhere between hibernating bear and frozen lottery ticket. Traditional Inuit knowledge recommends eating the fattiest portions of meat before sleeping. It's like putting another log on the fire before bed. Let me give you some statistics. In extremely cold conditions, up to 80% of the calories you consume go directly to maintaining body temperature. That's like running a space heater that eats all your groceries. Traditional Inuit hunters know this well. They'll often eat several pounds of meat in a single sitting after a hunt. A typical meal might include 2 to 3 pounds of meat, easily exceeding 3,000 calories. Your average food influencer would faint at the sight, but when you're burning calories faster than a furnace burns coal, you need all the energy you can get. The variety in an Inuit diet would surprise most people. We're talking about seals of at least 6 different species: whales, fish, caribou, muskox, birds, eggs, and even seasonal berries and seaweed when available. Each animal provides different nutritional benefits. Seal blood, for instance, is rich in iron and helps prevent anemia. Whale skin, called muktuk, is packed with vitamin D, crucial during those long, dark winter months when the sun takes an extended vacation. Fish eyes and organ meats might not make it onto your dinner party menu, but they're packed with vitamins A and D, essential for survival in the Arctic. There's even a social aspect to this high-calorie diet. Sharing food is deeply woven into Inuit culture. After a successful hunt, the catch is divided among community members. It's like a potluck dinner, except instead of bringing casseroles, everyone gets a share of the day's hunt. This sharing system ensures survival for the whole community, because trying to get through an Arctic winter solo is about as smart as using an ice cube for a pillow. The distribution of food follows traditional customs that ensure everyone, especially elders and children, gets the nutrients they need to survive. But consuming all these calories isn't just about sitting around and eating. The Inuit way of life demands constant movement. Because in the Arctic, staying still too long isn't just boring, it's dangerous. Your fancy fur clothing and well-stocked food supply won't help much if you let yourself become a human icicle. You might think the best way to conserve energy in extreme cold would be to curl up and minimize movement, like a bear hibernating. But try that approach in the Arctic, and you'll end up as the world's least impressive ice sculpture. The Inuit have developed an intricate system of constant motion that's kept them alive in temperatures that would freeze a penguin's tears. The human body has a fascinating way of responding to cold. It starts reducing blood flow to your extremities almost immediately. While this helps protect your vital organs, it also means your fingers and toes become about as useful as popsicles if you don't keep moving. That's why you'll never see an Inuit hunter sitting still for hours waiting for prey. They're always in motion, even if it's just shifting weight from foot to foot or flexing their fingers. These micro movements might look insignificant, but they're the difference between keeping all your fingers and having to learn to count to 8. In fact, in temperatures below minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, standing still for just 30 minutes can lower your core body temperature by up to 3 degrees. That might not sound like much, but considering normal body temperature is 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit and hypothermia kicks in at 95 degrees Fahrenheit, those 3 degrees are the difference between writing your next social media post and becoming an emergency room statistic. Studies of traditional Arctic hunters have shown that they instinctively move about every 3 to 4 minutes, even during supposedly still activities. Movement generates heat through a process called thermogenesis, which is just a fancy way of saying your muscles produce warmth when they work. Even small movements can make a big difference. Traditional Inuit hunters often perform a series of subtle exercises while waiting or watching for game. Rolling shoulders, wiggling toes inside boots, or doing small knee bends. It's like a very understated Arctic workout routine, except instead of trying to get summer ready, you're trying not to freeze solid. Research has shown that these small movements can increase local temperature in extremities by up to 10 degrees Fahrenheit. The clever thing about Inuit movement strategies is how they're woven into everyday tasks. Take igloo maintenance, for example. There's always something that needs fixing, checking, or adjusting. A small crack that might be a minor annoyance in warmer climates becomes a serious issue when the temperature drops below freezing. It's like having a to-do list where every item ends with, or freeze to death. That constant need for repairs and adjustments keeps people moving, which keeps them warm. Traditional communities actually build these maintenance tasks into their daily routines, creating a natural exercise program disguised as household chores. Inside the igloo, you'll rarely find anyone lounging around like it's a weekend on the couch. There's gear to repair, clothes to adjust, food to prepare, and various other tasks that require constant movement. Even activities that might seem sedentary, like sewing or preparing skins, involve enough small movements to maintain circulation. It's probably the world's most productive fidgeting. Every movement serves both a practical purpose and helps maintain body heat. The layout of traditional living spaces is actually designed to encourage this constant motion. The traditional Inuit way of life actually builds movement into its very structure. Tools and supplies are often kept in different areas of the living space, requiring people to move around to access them. It's like having a kitchen where the fridge, stove, and sink are all in different rooms. Annoying in a modern house, but genius when you're trying to stay warm in the Arctic. This deliberate inconvenience might seem counterintuitive, but it's a time-tested strategy for survival. When it comes to larger movements, hunting provides plenty of opportunities for staying warm. Tracking animals across the ice requires a combination of quick bursts of activity and slower, more deliberate movements. But here's the trick. Even during those slow stalking moments, hunters maintain micro-movements to keep their blood flowing. It's a bit like playing a very cold game of freeze tag where freezing actually isn't an option. Studies of traditional hunting techniques have shown that experienced hunters can maintain their core body temperature even during hours-long stalking sessions through these specialized movement patterns. The Inuit have even developed specific techniques for emergency movement situations. If someone starts showing signs of becoming too cold, things like fumbling with simple tasks or slurring words, they immediately engage in a series of vigorous movements. These aren't your standard jumping jacks, though. Those would work too. They include activities like quickly removing and replacing outer layers of clothing, doing deep knee bends, or even wrestling with a companion. It's probably the only place on Earth where challenging someone to a spontaneous wrestling match is considered a safety procedure. Even sleeping involves movement strategies. The traditional raised sleeping platform isn't just about staying above the cold air that collects at floor level. It's designed to be just uncomfortable enough to make you shift position regularly during the night. Every time you move in your sleep, you generate a tiny bit of heat. It's like having a built-in alarm clock that reminds your body to keep its internal furnace running. These natural movements during sleep can generate enough heat to raise your local skin temperature by several degrees. Children in Inuit communities learn these movement patterns naturally through games and daily activities. They're taught to stay active without even realizing they're learning a crucial survival skill. It's basically the Arctic version of the floor is lava, except in this case, the stakes are a bit higher than just pretending to fall into imaginary molten rock. These traditional games often mimic adult activities while incorporating the constant movement needed for survival. But all this movement would be pretty challenging without a reliable source of light and heat. That's where the qulliq comes in, the traditional seal oil lamp that's more than just a fancy candle. And unlike your scented wax warmers at home, this light source has kept people alive through countless Arctic nights. This ingenious device has been keeping Inuit warm and alive for thousands of years, and it puts our modern emergency heating systems to shame. Unlike the electric heater in your garage that trips the circuit breaker at the worst possible moment, the qulliq never fails as long as you've got seal oil and a bit of know-how. The genius of the qulliq starts with its fuel source. Seal oil isn't just any old fuel, it's nature's answer to premium gasoline for Arctic survival. When burned, it produces a clean, nearly smokeless flame that gives off just the right amount of heat without turning your igloo into a sauna or, worse, melting it. The oil comes from rendering seal blubber, a process that requires patience and skill. Too hot and you'll burn the oil. Too cool and you'll be waiting until the next ice age for your fuel. Traditional qulliqs are carved from soapstone, which isn't just about looking pretty. Soapstone has amazing heat retention properties. It absorbs heat from the flame and releases it slowly into the igloo, acting like a tiny radiator. The bowl is usually crescent-shaped, sometimes reaching 2 feet in length for larger living spaces. That's not random either. The curved shape helps distribute heat more evenly throughout the space, kind of like how a curved mirror spreads light. Here's an amusing bit of Arctic engineering. The wick in a qulliq isn't your standard candle wick. It's usually made from Arctic cotton grass or moss, carefully prepared and arranged along the edge of the lamp. The real trick is in how you manage these wicks. They need constant attention, like a temperamental celebrity. Too long and they'll smoke, too short and they won't draw up enough oil. The traditional tool for wick management is called a qulliq, and using it properly is an art form passed down through generations. It's like being a DJ, but instead of mixing tracks, you're adjusting flames to keep everyone alive. Temperature control with a qulliq requires skills that would make a master chef jealous. Want it warmer? Add more moss wicks or extend the existing ones. Need to cool things down, trim the wicks, or move them closer together. It's the world's oldest thermostat, and it never needs batteries. Studies have shown that an experienced user can maintain a temperature variance of just 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit using these techniques. Try getting that kind of precision from your home heating system. The multitasking abilities of the qulliq would put any modern appliance to shame. Need to dry your mittens? Hang them nearby, but not too close. You don't want them to start smoking. Melting snow for drinking water? There's a specific spot above the flame that's perfect for that. Cooking dinner? Different heights above the flame provide different temperatures. It's like having a combination space heater, stove, and clothes dryer, all running on seal oil. A well-maintained qulliq burning at full capacity can raise the temperature inside an igloo by up to 30 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit above the outside temperature. During the darkest winter months, when temperatures outside can hit minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit or lower, this temperature difference isn't just comfortable, it's the difference between life and death. And unlike modern heaters that guzzle electricity or fuel, a qulliq can run for hours on just a couple cups of seal oil. The light from a qulliq does more than just help you see where you put your mittens. The specific wavelength of light it produces has been found to have mood-boosting properties similar to modern light therapy lamps used to treat seasonal depression. Not bad for a stone bowl with some oil and moss, right? During the long, dark Arctic winter, this gentle, warm light helped maintain people's mental health long before anyone knew what seasonal affective disorder was. Maintaining a qulliq is a serious responsibility. Running out of fuel isn't like flipping a circuit breaker back on. It could mean the difference between surviving the night or not. That's why traditional Inuit always kept multiple sealed containers of fuel ready, stored in ways that prevented freezing. They'd rather run out of anything else before running out of seal oil. It's like having a backup for your backup, except instead of saving computer files, you're saving lives. The smoke from a qulliq also serves as an early warning system for igloo problems. If the flames start smoking more than usual, it might mean there's not enough ventilation, a potentially deadly situation in an enclosed space. The small hole at the top of the igloo needs to be kept clear for proper airflow, and the behavior of the qulliq flame helps monitor this. It's like having a primitive carbon monoxide detector, except this one also cooks your dinner. After a long day of hunting and constant movement to stay warm, everyone needs a good night's rest. But sleeping in the Arctic comes with its own set of challenges, ones that would keep most people up all night. Good thing the Inuit figured out some clever tricks for catching Z's in the world's biggest freezer. The gentle glow of the qulliq might make you sleepy, but getting proper rest in the Arctic requires more strategy than a chess grandmaster's tournament game. First rule of Arctic sleeping: never, ever sleep directly on the ground. That's about as smart as using an ice cube for a pillow. The Inuit figured out that even a few inches of elevation can make the difference between waking up refreshed and not waking up at all. The science behind this is simple but crucial. In temperatures below negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit, sleeping on the ground can drain your body heat faster than your smartphone battery in cold weather. The traditional sleeping platform in an igloo sits about 2 feet above the entrance level, and there's solid science behind this height. Cold air sinks like a rock in water, collecting at the lowest point of the igloo, conveniently right where that entrance tunnel is. Meanwhile, the warmest air rises to the exact height where people sleep. It's a natural temperature control system that would make modern HVAC engineers jealous. Tests have shown that this elevation can create a temperature difference of up to 15 degrees Fahrenheit between floor level and sleeping height. In practical terms, that's the difference between comfortable sleep and a very uncomfortable night. Bedding choices in the Arctic aren't about thread count or whether you prefer memory foam. The Inuit traditionally use caribou furs for bedding, and they're particular about how they use them. The furs are layered with the hair pointing upward on the bottom layer and downward on the top layer. This isn't just being picky about fur direction. It creates tiny air pockets that trap heat better than any expensive camping sleeping bag. A good caribou fur sleeping setup can maintain warmth in temperatures as low as -40 degrees Fahrenheit, and you won't have to worry about the battery dying like you do with those heated blankets. Each layer of fur contains thousands of hollow hair fibers, creating multiple insulating air chambers. Speaking of temperature ratings, traditional Inuit bedding has been tested by modern scientists and found to have an R value higher than most modern sleeping bags. A properly prepared caribou skin provides an R value of about 8 per inch thickness. Compare that to your typical synthetic sleeping bag with an R value of 5, and you'll understand why indigenous knowledge beats modern technology in this case. A well-made traditional bed using multiple layers can achieve an R value of up to 40, better than most house walls. One crucial aspect of Arctic sleeping arrangements is the buddy system. Sleeping alone might sound peaceful, but in the Arctic, it's about as smart as going skiing in a swimsuit. Traditional sleeping arrangements often involve families or hunting groups sleeping close together. Body heat is a valuable resource when it's cold enough to freeze your eyelashes together. The Inuit understood something that modern campers often forget. In extreme cold, personal space is less important than survival. A group of people sleeping together can raise the local temperature by several degrees through shared body heat alone. The sleeping position itself matters more than you might think. The common practice of sleeping curled up isn't just about being cozy, it's about maximizing heat retention. By curling up, you reduce the surface area exposed to cold air by up to 20%. The traditional Inuit sleeping position often involves tucking your nose and mouth into your chest area, creating a small pocket of warm air to breathe. It's like having a built-in scarf that never falls off. This position also protects facial extremities from frostbite during sleep. Moisture management during sleep is another critical factor that the Inuit mastered long ago. Sweating during sleep can be deadlier than not having enough warmth. Wet clothing or bedding can freeze, turning your cozy sleeping spot into a personal icebox. The caribou fur bedding naturally wicks moisture away from the body, while the carefully maintained ventilation hole at the top of the igloo allows that moisture to escape. It's a sophisticated humidity control system that doesn't need electricity or batteries. Each caribou hair is not only hollow, but also has a waxy coating that helps repel moisture while maintaining insulation properties. Studies of traditional Inuit sleep patterns during the dark winter months show they typically got 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep, despite the extreme conditions. The combination of physical activity during the day, proper nutrition, and their refined sleeping setup created better sleep conditions than many modern city dwellers experience in their temperature-controlled bedrooms. The natural light from the qulliq, the sound of wind outside, and the secure feeling of a well-built shelter all contributed to this healthy sleep pattern. The preparation for sleep follows a careful routine that's been refined over thousands of years. Before bed, hunters would often perform a series of subtle exercises to generate just enough heat to warm their sleeping spot without causing sweating. They'd also check their clothing and bedding for any snow or ice that might have accumulated. Finding a chunk of ice in your bed is way worse than finding a pea under your mattress. This bedtime routine also included adjusting the qulliq's flame to maintain the right temperature through the night. Morning wake-up routines were equally strategic. Instead of jumping up like you might at home when the alarm goes off, Arctic dwellers would gradually increase their movement while still under the warm furs. This allowed their muscles to warm up slowly and prevented the shock of going from warm sleep to cold air too quickly. It's like having a built-in snooze button that actually serves a survival purpose. The whole process could take 15 to 20 minutes, but this gradual transition helped prevent cold-related injuries and maintained energy for the day ahead. Of course, waking up is just the beginning of another challenging day in the Arctic. Getting from your cozy sleeping platform to actually starting your daily tasks requires its own set of carefully developed strategies. The first task of every Arctic morning, a full body check for frostbite. Because nothing ruins your day quite like discovering your toes have turned into ice cubes overnight. It's the world's least fun game of hot and cold, except in this case, you're desperately hoping for warm and normal colored. The Inuit developed a systematic approach to these morning health checks that modern doctors find impressive. Each finger and toe gets a thorough inspection, checking for any whitish-gray patches or numbness. You might complain about your morning routine, but at least you don't have to count your fingers every day to make sure they're all still working. Research has shown that catching frostbite in its early stages can prevent tissue damage 90% of the time, which explains why this check is priority number one. Temperature management starts the moment you stir. The air in your sleeping area might be a toasty minus 10 degrees Fahrenheit thanks to that carefully positioned sleeping platform, but just a few feet away, it could be minus 40 degrees Fahrenheit or colder. Moving too quickly is like jumping into a frozen lake, shocking and potentially dangerous. The traditional wake-up process takes about 15 to 20 minutes, with each movement carefully planned. Modern survival experts have actually adopted this gradual wake-up technique, calling it the Arctic warm-up protocol. Next comes what might be the most important maintenance check of the day, inspecting the igloo itself. Any small crack that formed overnight needs immediate attention. In temperatures below minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit, a crack the size of your thumb can let in enough cold air to drop the interior temperature by 20 degrees in under an hour. It's like having a leaky roof, except instead of rain getting in, it's air cold enough to freeze your breath. The morning repair routine often involves patching these cracks with fresh snow, shaped to fit exactly right. Think of it as the world's coldest game of Tetris. The qulliq needs immediate attention too. The morning fire tender, usually the first person awake, has the crucial job of checking the flame and oil levels. Running out of fuel isn't like your phone dying, it's more like your phone dying while you're trying to call for help in the middle of nowhere. Traditional morning fire maintenance includes trimming the moss wicks and adding fresh seal oil. Studies of traditional qulliq maintenance show that a well-maintained lamp can maintain stable temperatures for up to 16 hours on just a cup of seal oil. Getting dressed in the morning takes on new meaning when your clothes might be frozen stiff. The trick is to store essential items like boots and mittens in strategic spots where they stay warm enough to remain flexible but cool enough to prevent sweating when you put them on. Ever tried to put on a frozen boot? It's like trying to slide your foot into a concrete block. The Inuit solved this problem by keeping their boots elevated near, but not too near the qulliq overnight. Breakfast preparation starts while you're still bundled up. In the coldest parts of winter, this might mean chipping off pieces of frozen meat or fish that were stored in the ice house, nature's freezer. The morning meal needs to pack enough calories to fuel hours of physical activity in extreme cold. We're talking about 2,000 to 3,000 calories just for breakfast. Your bowl of cornflakes suddenly seems pretty wimpy in comparison. Speaking of food, morning is also when you check your supplies. Running low on seal oil or meat isn't like forgetting to buy milk. It's a potential emergency. Traditional Inuit families kept detailed mental inventories of their food stores, knowing exactly how many days of supplies they had left. This morning inventory check was more important than checking your email or social media feed. Though, admittedly, the Arctic has significantly fewer cat videos to distract you. Water preparation is another crucial morning task. Since you can't just turn on a tap unless you want an icicle, morning means melting snow or ice for drinking water. The process requires careful attention. Melting too much wastes precious fuel. Too little leaves you dehydrated. The average person needs about a gallon of water per day in the Arctic, and smart water management in the morning can make the difference between having enough and running dry. The morning gear check is like preparing for a spacewalk. Every piece of equipment needs to work perfectly because there's zero margin for error. Hunting tools, navigation aids, and repair materials all get inspected before heading out. A broken spear or torn sealskin line might mean the difference between a successful hunt and going hungry. Your morning coffee machine breaking down seems pretty trivial in comparison. But what really keeps you going through these bone-chilling morning routines isn't just physical preparation. It's knowing how to stay mentally strong when the Arctic throws its worst at you. Physical preparation can only take you so far when you're living in temperatures that make penguins look overdressed. The real secret to Arctic survival sits right between your ears: mental toughness. The Inuit have mastered this psychological game better than any self-help guru could dream of, and they did it without a single motivational poster or morning meditation app. Living in the Arctic requires a completely different relationship with cold. While most of us treat cold weather like an annoying relative who overstays their welcome, the Inuit view it as a simple fact of life. Like gravity, except gravity doesn't try to freeze your nose off. Research into traditional Inuit psychology shows remarkably low rates of cold-related stress compared to modern Arctic visitors. When you've grown up in minus 50-degree Fahrenheit temperatures, a regular winter day feels about as threatening as a mild breeze. The first rule of Arctic mental toughness: don't panic. Panic burns precious energy faster than a teenager goes through phone data. The traditional Inuit approach to unexpected problems would make a meditation teacher proud. Stay calm, assess the situation, and act deliberately. Studies of experienced hunters show their heart rates barely increase, even in dangerous situations. Meanwhile, modern Arctic visitors often show stress responses to simple tasks like getting dressed in cold weather. Humor plays a surprisingly crucial role in Arctic survival. The Inuit have a rich tradition of using jokes and storytelling to maintain morale during the darkest, coldest months. These aren't just dad jokes, though. Those exist too. They're a sophisticated coping mechanism. Psychological studies have found that laughter actually increases cold tolerance by up to 10%, which might explain why Inuit humor often focuses on turning challenging situations into something to laugh about. Time perception gets a complete makeover in the Arctic. That rushing around we do in modern life, up here it's as useful as a chocolate teapot. Traditional Inuit culture operates on what anthropologists call Arctic time, where patience isn't just a virtue, it's a survival tool. When you're waiting for a seal to surface through its breathing hole, getting antsy after 5 minutes could mean going home hungry. Some hunters have been known to wait motionless for hours, showing the kind of patience that would make a statue look fidgety. The Arctic also teaches you about controlling what you can and accepting what you can't. You can't make the temperature warmer or the day longer, but you can build a better igloo or prepare more thoroughly. This mindset has been studied by psychologists who found it remarkably similar to modern stress management techniques. The difference? The Inuit developed these strategies through necessity, not through reading self-help books or attending wellness seminars. Social bonds take on new importance when facing extreme cold. Traditional Inuit communities developed intricate support systems that would put modern social networks to shame. Everyone had a role, and everyone looked out for each other. Studies show that this social cohesion led to significantly better survival rates compared to early European expeditions that tried to maintain rigid hierarchies. Nothing builds team spirit quite like knowing your survival depends on working together. Memory training is another fascinating aspect of Arctic mental toughness. Without smartphones or GPS, traditional hunters memorize vast landscapes and their seasonal changes. We're talking about mental maps covering hundreds of square miles, including details about ice conditions, animal migration patterns, and safe travel routes. Modern memory researchers are still trying to figure out how they manage this level of detailed recall. It's like having Google Maps in your head, except this version works when your battery dies. The ability to stay focused during monotonous tasks becomes crucial when one small mistake could be your last. Traditional skills like igloo building or seal hunting require hours of concentrated effort in conditions that would make most people want to curl up and cry. Research indicates that experienced Arctic dwellers can maintain focus for up to 50% longer than the average person when performing critical tasks in extreme cold. That fear management takes on a whole new meaning in the Arctic. Instead of trying to be fearless, which is about as smart as trying to be coldless, the Inuit developed a practical relationship with fear. They treat it like a weather report, useful information that helps you prepare, not an emotion that controls your actions. Young hunters learn to acknowledge their fear of the cold while preventing it from clouding their judgment, a skill that modern psychologists now recognize as a sophisticated form of emotional regulation. All these mental strategies work together like a well-oiled machine, helping people not just survive, but thrive in conditions that would send most of us running for the nearest heated building. It's proof that the human mind, when properly trained and supported by generations of wisdom, can adapt to almost anything. The Arctic might be the world's biggest freezer, but it's also the world's best classroom for learning what humans are truly capable of.